how do you report an accident to the other driver's insurance company without destroying your own case? Well, unfortunately, accidents are common, and the thing you're supposed to do is report it to your insurance carrier. But for numbers of reasons, that doesn't always happen. What happens more frequently than it should is you've been in an accident, somebody else is at fault, you're waiting to hear from their insurance carrier because you want to get your car fixed, you want to get your bills paid, you want to get your lost work paid, and you don't hear anything. So, well, what can you do without hiring a lawyer right out of the bat? Well, you can simply call up the insurance company for the other driver and start a claim if they haven't already. So, hopefully, at the time of the accident, you got a picture or you wrote down the insurance information for the other driver who might be at fault for the accident. And maybe if you didn't, then you get a copy of the police report later. It should be on that. So you call up the insurance company. Let's just say it's Farmers. I'm not here to pick on Farmers. I'm just picking a very common insurance company. You say, hi, I was involved in an accident on this date and time. And they're going to say, okay, what is the policy number? That's the first important thing you're going to need, because if you don't have the policy number, you're probably not going to get anywhere with the person on the other end of the phone. So you give them the policy number and they will let you know, oh, hey, there's already a claim opened, and this is what we're going to be doing, or there is no claim opened, would you like to open a claim? And so if you're calling, there's a good chance the claim is not open, because if there was an open claim, the claims rep from Farmers or whatever company it is probably would have already given you a call. So what are they going to ask you? Well, they're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. And most of those questions are completely innocuous, and it's fine for you to answer them without a second thought. They're going to ask you things like, of course, your name, contact information, what car you are driving, the year, make, and model, maybe the license plate, maybe the color of it. They're going to ask you about the year, make, and model of the vehicle that their insured was driving. They're going to want that person's name. They're going to want to know who the registered owner is if you've got that. They're going to want to know about passengers. Were there passengers in your car? Who were they? What's their phone number? What about passengers in the other car? If you know that, they'll ask you about that stuff too. They'll ask you a lot of questions, and you don't need to know all of them. You just kind of need to know the basics, your policy, their policy number, the date and time of the accident, what road did it happen on. And so you're going to go through all these very easy questions, and then they'll ask you just another question that sounds just as innocuous, but it's not. They'll say something like, well, what happened? And when they ask you what happened, they're looking for an answer that can help them show that you're at fault, not their driver. So if it's super clear, oh, hey, I was driving westbound on Spring Valley Road and somebody made a left turn across traffic, boom, caused the accident, they got a ticket, that's super simple. If there's a little bit of a gray area about what's going on, this isn't the time to argue with the adjuster. You don't want to try to build your case now. You just want to open a claim so they can start their investigating. So you can say, hey, look, there was an accident. The police came. Here's the number to order the police report. Go get a copy of the police report. And, I'm happy to talk about it more later, but not right now. So then they'll ask you a bunch more questions, and then they'll probably come to another one that sounds very conversational. Hey, so how you doing? And a lot of people will be like, fine, thanks, how are you? But they're not just making pleasant conversation. They're looking for a way to show that you were not hurt from the accident. And if you were not hurt from the accident and you just want to get your car fixed, that's great. But if you were hurt from the accident, don't say, I'm fine, how are you? Because they're going to say, oh, the caller said that he or she was fine. That means there's no injuries. If you make a claim for injuries later, then they're going to come back and say, well, you called me on the day of the accident or a few days after. You said you were fine. Why were you fine then and you're injured now? What did you do that caused your injuries that you're complaining about? Because obviously it wasn't from the accident, because if it was from the accident, you would have said you were injured. You wouldn't have said, I'm fine. So how do you answer it? Well, generally, you're not a medical professional. Yes, there are some doctors out there that get in accidents, and if you're a doctor and you got in an accident, you know exactly what to say. But for the rest of us who are not doctors, what are you going to tell them? You can say, well, look, I went to get checked out, or I'm going to get checked out. I don't know, I don't have a diagnosis, but I will provide you with medical records later. And just leave it at that. They're probably not going to go through you head to toe questions. Do you have a headache? Does your back sore? Is your neck sore? They're probably not going to ask you all that. Just defer to your medical records for later because you're not an expert, and what they're trying to do is to minimize your claim later. Now, your real goal is simple with a phone call. You just want to open a claim. You just want to protect your rights. That's it. This is not the time to argue your case. This is not the time to tell them how hurt you are. You just want them to open the claim. Then at the end, you're going to get a claim number. Hang on to that claim number. And that's going to be what you use to communicate with them going down the road. Now, if you're unsure about what to say, or maybe you're worried because you already made the call and you feel like you said something maybe you shouldn't have, and you've got questions, it probably wouldn't hurt to call a personal injury lawyer in the state where you're at. Most of us have free consultations. If you happen to be in the state of Nevada, where I practice law, and you've got questions about your injury claim, book a call with me. We'll talk about it. It's free, no pressure, no obligation, just answers.